Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with allthingsbbq.com, and this is Brisket Hot Links. So if you love smoking briskets, chances are your freezer's full of a pile of brisket trim. Today I want to give you guys a recipe to utilize some of that brisket trim. We're going to do that in the form of an all-beef brisket hot link. So let's jump right in and get some grind on. So we're making a 5-pound batch of sausages today, and we want our fat ratio to be at about 70% meat to 30% fat. So I've just gone ahead and for most of this meat, I've cut the fat off of it. You can see this is some of the lean. We've got some bits of fatty in here just around the edges, but for the most part, I just went ahead and weighed out like 3.5 pounds of our meat and 1.5 pounds of our fat, and that'll get us somewhere close to that 70-30, a little bit fattier than that because obviously there's still fat inside this meat, but just that's a great jumping off point. Now, as far as the grind, we're using a fairly thick die to start with, to start and to finish with. This is a 10mm die, and we're gonna run it through here twice. First with just meat, and then again with the seasonings. All right, so we're gonna fire this up and start feeding our brisket scraps through. And as we get close to the end here of our 5 pounds of meat, I want to be able to push all of that meat through so that we can use as much of it as possible. Not quite as important on this first grind as it is on the second, but what I'll do is just take a couple ice cubes here and we'll drop those in. And that just kind of forces that meat all the way through the grinder. Adding just that little bit of moisture is not going to hurt anything, but once we see that ice popping through, just go ahead and turn this off. And then we've got our first grind. So you got to work quickly. If you're in a warm setting like we are, you might want to go ahead and throw this in the fridge. But what we want to do, the next step, is to actually mix our seasonings into the meat and grind it one more time. Our seasoning base is pretty simple. We want about 2% salt in this recipe by weight. And luckily, I happened to create this Lone Star brisket rub for cattlemen, so I know exactly the salt content, and I can tell you that for a 5-pound batch, it works out to about 10 tablespoons of the seasoning. So we get that 2% salt, but on top of that, we get our black pepper, we get the garlic and the celery seed, all a great flavor base for a hot link. Now on top of that, we're gonna add 8 tablespoons or ½ cup each of smoked paprika and cayenne. So this is where we get our heat for our hot link. And then we're gonna add about 4% by weight of our dried milk powder. And this is kind of our binder. So this one helps the meat kind of bind. It gives you the proper sausage texture when you mix this. And on top of that, it's gonna add a really nice amount of moisture to the sausage, help with that moisture retention. So it's as simple as that. Little dried milk powder, Texas brisket rub, paprika, and cayenne. All right, so all of our seasoning going into the first grind. We're gonna make sure we get that kind of worked in here, and then we're gonna work it in there even more as we push it through this grinder one more time. Cut it right into the meat. So by running this through a second time, we get a finer texture on the dice here, but it's not so fine that it's like hot dog or something like that. It's still gonna have some good texture to it. And that's really what we want out of, a good quality smoked sausage, be it a hot link or a brat or whatever it is. You wanna have a little bit of texture in there. You don't wanna be so fine that there's no texture at all, but at the same time, you don't want just like huge chunks. Now the next step in the process is to mix our sausage to form that primary bind. This basically means we're manually agitating the proteins until they become tacky and sticky, create that sausage texture that we all know and love. Now, unfortunately, it's too hot out here to be just flying through these steps. It's like 90 degrees. We got to chill this down. So the sausage right now is in the fridge, cooling off, because if we go ahead and mix it now, we're just going to smear all that fat, and that too can ruin the texture of your sausage. But in the meantime, we're going to put together the liquid portion of this sausage. We're doing about 10% liquid by weight, and I'll show you how that shakes out with the different ingredients we're using. So the base liquid here is going to be a Mexican lager. If you want to just use water or beef stock, you can totally do that. We're going to beef this up with a beef-based concentrate, 1 tablespoon. This is on top of half a can of beer, about 6 ounces. So we're going to get the beefiness in there, but we're also going to get a little bit of that beer flavor. So we're also going to do a little mustard seed in here, the Kozlik's Triple Crunch. So this is just kind of like a pickled mustard seed. Give us a nice briny, kind of sour bite, and these little pops, those will be distributed throughout the sausages. It's a really nice little addition. And then finally we've got some hot sauce. It's a hot link, so why not add some hot sauce? We're using the Heat Mavericks Anti-Gravity Scorpion, so you know it's going to have some kick. I'm going to do 1 teaspoon per pound, so 5 teaspoons total. So by weight there, that should account for about 10% of the weight of the meat. Give this a good whisk, make sure that that beef stock gets dissolved into the liquid, and then this is going to get worked right into that sausage base on the mixer. All right, so ready to mix now. We're gonna do our mixing in the bowl of the KitchenAid stand mixer, but you have options. You could do this by hand if you like. You could do this in kind of a sausage mixer that you crank by hand. The KitchenAid makes pretty quick work of it, although I don't want to overload this, so we're going to do this in batches. We're going to do, it's about 2.5 pounds in there now. We'll do 1 cup of our liquid to go with that. It's about half, and then we'll combine it afterwards. So this won't take long. You're going to mix on a fairly high speed for about 60 seconds until you see the texture change. That's one thing I like about using the KitchenAid for this, is it happens real quick, which is nice because, like I said, it's warm outside. We don't want this sitting at room temperature any longer than it has to. All right, so you can see how much this has changed just in those 30 to 60 seconds that it's mixed. If we try to pick this up, the whole thing wants to hold together. And that's the bind that we're looking for. Now this stuff that hasn't been mixed yet, you pick that up, it just wants to crumble apart. So we got to get that second half looking just like this first half. All right, that second half's looking good. So this is going to go back into the refrigerator while we set up the sausage stuffer. All right, so we're all set up now. We're going to get our sausage loaded into the stuffer. We want to make sure we don't have any air bubbles in there, so we don't want to push in air bubbles into the casings. Some people insist on kind of like throwing this in here, like slapping it down. I don't really know that it makes much of a difference. I think just get it packed in there really well and press out any air, that little air pockets that might form along the way. All right, so let's get it loaded up here. So we've got our little air release right here. It's really important that that pops up to let that air out as it pushes down. We're just gonna take this until we've got resistance. So we're using a natural hog casing. This has been soaked in water just for a couple of hours until it softens up, and then rinsed really thoroughly so that it's not too salty. What I'm gonna do here is just open up the end and get a little bit of water sitting inside of there, and that's gonna kind of lubricate the casing here so that it slides onto the horn really easy. And we're just gonna load up, about 5 pounds worth of casings onto the horn. And it's not a bad thing that we're leaving some water behind here. It's gonna help everything move just a little bit easier. But yeah, keeping these wet, having a little bit of water on hand, that's the best way to keep them from sticking. All right, so once we've got this fully loaded, we're gonna bring the sausage all the way into the horn, right to the end of that horn there, I should say. We'll pull this over the edge and tie this off, and then we've got our starting point. We wanna try and keep that air out of there, but if we leave a little bit behind, we can always take care of that. Just a little tap of the knife will form a small enough hole to let that air out. And then we're just going to slowly start filling the casing up, cranking away. We don't want too much tension, but you want to also fill that casing up. You'll want to be careful not to overstuff, I guess is what I'm saying, because we are going to twist these off once we get them fully loaded. Initially here though, we're just going to fill this into one large coil. And I'll show you how we want to go ahead and link these off. So we're going to do our pinch, pinch, twist. So start at the end that you've already tied off. You're going to pinch the length that you like. Pinch, pinch, twist. A good like 5 or 6 twists around. And just repeat. Pinch, pinch, twist. All right. And when you get to the end, you've got that open piece. You can go ahead and kind of squish that down to make sure that that's nice and full, and tie it off. And we're going to do this just like we did the last one, except now we already have that sausage right at the end, so we can go ahead and tie it off right off the bat. And we'll start cranking again. Just using the slightest pressure with your fingers and your thumb to get just the right amount of filling in there. All right, so I should have mentioned this the first time around, but instead of starting at that end that's already tied off, you start with this end that's open, and that will make sure that you don't overstuff this or have another blowout as you're kind of twisting these. You can get your pinch on, your twist on, and this is just going to push toward the end rather than being stuck with nowhere to go. Pinch, pinch, twist. All right, so we've reached the end of our sausage filling now. Just about perfect amount of casing. So we'll go ahead and pinch the rest of this off so I can get a good 4 out of this one. Pinch, pinch, twist. I'll have a shorty here at the end. Tie this guy off. Now, unfortunately, we're not eating sausage today because this needs to sit overnight and form the pellicle on the outside of the casing. We'll place these over our sheet pan, and then this is just going to go into the refrigerator completely open, just like this, so that we can start to form this pellicle on the outside. And what's going to happen here is this is going to dry out overnight, and it's going to allow the smoke to really stick to the sausage. What we're going to do just real quick here is put a few holes in our casings to let some air out. These are small enough that this is just going to close right back up. Not going to end up like leaking juices or anything like that. All right, into the fridge. We'll see you tomorrow. All right, guys, we're back. Our hot links have been sitting out overnight in the refrigerator. They've kind of got that nice tacky surface going on, which is going to be great for soaking up the smoke flavor. So we're here at the Yoder Smokers YS640S pellet grill. We're running it real low today, 200 degrees with hickory pellets. All right, just to make it easy to move these in and out, we're just gonna put them on here right on the wire rack. And then to give us a little bit of an idea of where the temperature's at, we'll pick one of these sausages and insert our probe in there so we can just kind of have a rough idea. We want to bring these up to about 150, 155 degrees today. All right, guys, these have been on for about 2 hours now. We come up to about 155 internal temperature. Got some great color on them. We're ready to pull these off, and they're gonna go straight into an ice bath. So we wanna stop the cooking process immediately, which is why we're gonna put them in an ice bath so that they don't cook any further. We're just gonna let them sit in here until they cool down, and then they can be reheated later. Whether you're freezing them for now or gonna cook them soon, you can warm them back up on the grill. So typically after I've chilled these down, I'm gonna put them in a vacuum pack and I'm gonna seal them up and stick them in the freezer so you can pull these out next time you're having a barbecue, next time you're having a party. And then these reheat real nice on the grill. We just did this last weekend out at the lake house, and they came out nicely charred and cooked all the way through, because you're pretty much cooked all the way through now. We'll take a look at this little cross section so you can see. But look at the way that that fat's dispersed. You got these beautiful little pockets of that fat, that brisket fat, the beef tallow, marbled all the way through. Picking out some mustard seeds in there. And then I actually really like to split these in half and just sear them in a skillet or something like that. Throw that in a tortilla, and that's what we're gonna do today. We'll just put a little sear on that cut surface. Get a little texture on there. Oh yeah, get a little color on there. I'm gonna throw a little onion down just to soften up. Stick a couple of tortillas in there to warm up too. All right, let's get these things out of here. Got our tortillas softened up. Put some onions on top. Flour tortilla beats out a hot dog bun any day of the week. Just a little bit of barbecue sauce on top. That's it. All right, here we go. First impression, great snap on the skin. Fantastic texture. Getting a little bit of barbecue sauce that's sweetening things up, because right behind it, there's that heat kicking in from that cayenne, a little bit from that scorpion sauce. I love having the tortilla to soak up all that juiciness. And the bite from the onion goes really nice with it. But, of course, it's a hot link. You can cook this any which way you want. Put it on a hot dog bun if that's how you like them. Dice them up, put them in your eggs in the morning. We've definitely done that for breakfast around here. You've got a lot of different options, a lot of different ways that you can go when you're deciding how to utilize these hot links. And the great thing is, 5-pound batch, break them up into some bags, pull them out one at a time, and you can do all kinds of different things with the same batch of sausage. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out allthingsbbq.com for all the products featured in today's video. If you enjoyed the recipe, hit that subscribe button. And if you have any questions or comments, or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to allthingsbbq.com/thesauce. All things barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.